I am live. It's 12 noon according to the clock on Facebook, and that means that I have to get on here and start talking about baseball. That's the law. Uh, a lot to talk about today. What a great first full week of baseball we had, and we're broadcasting here on the Lenny Melnick Fantasy Network, the Legend Network, which you can chat live at LennyMelnickFantasySports.com. I will be checking that chat stream with some regularity. I'm supposed to be able to get the comments off other things in StreamYard, but I've never been able to show much success at that because, well, for whatever reason that is. But here we are. It's noon. That's the new plan, is that I will be broadcasting live from the dugout on Saturdays at noon, maybe at 12:30. Andrea's on Saturday at 12:30, and so I'll be on Sunday at 12:30. Then you got Lenny Monday through Friday. So every day of the week you have at least 1 hour of baseball talk, or 45 minutes. I don't know how long I'm going to go. I'm new at this particular style, and it might be longer than you think. I do talk fast, so I'm going to kind of give myself too much information, but I'm going to go through all of it. If it goes too long, I might take a 5-minute break somewhere in there. I don't see anyone out there yet. I usually start with just because it takes a minute for people to get into some smaller tidbits of information. I know people were talking about college baseball more than they have in the past because of what Vanderbilt's pitching has done with Kumar Rocker, who's expected to be the number one draft pick in the LVL draft, and Jack Leiter, Al Leiter's son, who threw a no-hitter already this year. I turned on the game on Thursday night. It was on SEC Network, and I got to watch a little bit of Georgia and Vanderbilt play. In that game, Kumar Rocker, he struck out 11, but he did allow 5 hits and 5 runs and 3 home runs, and it was definitely not his best outing, and that's something you probably haven't heard elsewhere. The other thing I want to talk about, just to kind of blend into things, the biggest story for me this week was the Tatis injury, which I'll get to in more depth. One of the chat rooms that I technically am a founding member of, because we broke free from someone else, and I get to say hello to Penelope Caprillion. I put up an article from the San Diego Tribune. It was an interview with a doctor talking about the potential seriousness of the disease, of the injury, and I thought it was just useful. I put down, here's something that'll ruin your day. The thing got 83 comments, mostly because somewhere in there's a streak of, I don't know what the word is. I want to say it's hate, but somebody posted something about serves them right for getting a big contract. And the next thing you know, there's 70 comments about how these guys are horrible. And I don't want to really go into whether they're horrible or not. I don't think they're horrible. I like baseball. That's why I talk about it. That's why I watch it. That's why I play this fantasy sports game. But it's pretty amazing that in the last 3 weeks, I got to see 100 people tell me how awful Trevor Bauer is, and I got to see 100 people tell me how awful Nicholas Castellano is, and I got to see 100 people tell me how awful Francisco Lindor is because he didn't take the first contract. And I just don't know where, and I don't have an answer to the question. It's just a question I want to pose, is where did all this hate come from in baseball? It shouldn't be there. It's a beautiful sport. It should remind you of better times, where you're sitting there in the green grass and you hit the ball in the sweet spot, or I tear up when I think about the best game my brother ever pitched. I was the catcher for it. It was a one hitter. It was really cool, and I always have the memory. That's what baseball should be. I think about you ever see the movie City Slickers? Of course, you can't answer me back, but there's a scene in there where the woman who played, I don't remember her name, but she was the one that played on The Legend of Billie Jean, and she was Supergirl. And she says, Helen Shaver, she says, why do people watch this stupid little game of baseball? It's not real. And Daniel Stern, one of the 3 City Slickers, said, there was a time when I was 17 when I couldn't talk to my dad about anything, but we could talk about baseball, and that's real. And that's what baseball should be. It should be that uniting force. And that's all I want to say at the beginning, just kind of a warm-up to get into things. Hello. Andrea's here. And with that, we can go on. Andrea, you know how to use this thing. If I talk too long or you want to pop on later, you're welcome to join me on the thing. I do have a lot to say, but you're always welcome. And I apologize for missing your show yesterday. I moved from Saturday to Sunday because I have a family Zoom call, and the Zoom call didn't start till 11:30. Normally it starts in the 9 o'clock hour, but yeah, that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a thing. It's like it's baseball. It's our thing. Why are there the only things that get 100 comments are on a baseball post is that hate for these guys that are making big money. I don't have a problem with making big money. I actually think I think that most baseball players are underpaid. I liken it to let's put it this way, right? People are paying $300 a ticket to go see Taylor Swift, in concert. And I got nothing against Taylor Swift or Justin Bieber. You can pick what you want. And the 14-year-old girls are all swooning over it, and they're making their dads pay the money. And at that concert, 80% of the money goes to Taylor Swift and her stuff, and 20% goes to the people that have the stadiums. And in baseball, our Taylor Swift is Francisco Lindor at shortstop, and Javi Baez at shortstop, and Ronald Acuna or Juan Soto in the outfield. And you take all the players together, and they don't get a third of what Taylor Swift gets, and that's what we're paying for. I'm the screaming 14-year-old girl for Juan Soto and for Teoscar Hernandez. Well, anyway, they should be paid more. People shouldn't hate them. Where did all the hate come from? Let's decide, as a member of this network and as a fan of my show, that we're going to appreciate baseball for what it is, and it'll unite us. So the week that was, this show is going to be on a weekly basis about waiver wire pickups in context. And the idea is that the things that I do for my waiver wire, I'm going to walk you through. And it's going to take a longer time than you probably are ready for. And I'm going to talk fast because of that. But these things that I would do normally in about a half an hour, 45 minutes on a given day, because I was taking notes and I'm reading back notes, it's going to take a little bit longer than that. But we're going to go through injuries. We're going to go through some of the transactions. We're going to go because a quality fantasy baseball player has to have two qualities. One is talent, and two is opportunity. And the things like trades and injuries and stuff are the things that create the opportunity. And so if you don't have a grasp of that, you don't really know. You're not prepared for the waiver wire. And so that's my idea of waiver and kind of. So we'll start with the trades, which are all relatively minor. Pittsburgh traded Edgar Santana, the Braves, for cash, who was immediately sent to the opposite side. He's a relief pitcher. Yankees traded Antonio Cabello and Josh Stowers. Josh Stowers was at one point a relatively high-rated Yankee outfield prospect. I mean, I think he was like 11th or something. For Rougned Odor and cash. I don't really get that. I mean, everything I hear is like they're thinking a left-handed power bat might work well in Yankee Stadium. I think Rougned Odor is one of those rare people. Like, there are people that are great baseball players and great fantasy players, and there are baseball players that you'll hear people say he's a better baseball player than a fantasy player. Rougned Odor is the one guy I know of who's a better fantasy player than a baseball player, because he will be lousy for a team, but still he get 25 home runs and still do 14 bases, which is something that we actually could use. I don't see it happening on the Yankees. It's kind of weird. Truth be told, when he was young and coming up, I was a big fan. On at least one baseball site, my name is not Doug, but it's Dougout after Rougned. It was sort of like given to me by somebody, and I still answer to that, Dougout. And so if you were here for this, you know that. Otherwise, you will never hear that again. Because now that he's on Yankees, I'm going to have to change my name on that site. I was perfectly fine with it for 5 years of him stinking. And then the Brewers traded Orlando Arcia to the Braves for right-hand pitcher Chad Sobotka and Patrick Weigel. I think it's a nice trade for the Brewers because Sobotka and Weigel were guys that were considered decent pitching prospects, and they were behind the really elite pitching prospects for the Braves. So these guys might actually be big league pitchers, and they got rid of Arcia. Arcia, I was hoping, with the Tatis injury, was one of the guys that I was going to eye for the deep league possible fill-ins, because there were some things that I liked about him going into 2020, which I can't fully discount. But going to the Braves, he's not going to be worth much. And that's it. I'm gonna try something here because Penelope said that she's here. I'm supposed to be able to Hey, I can show that in there and I can hide it. That's kind of neat. And that's it. Those are the trades. Signings kind of goes along with it. The Giants claimed outfield prospect from the A's, Sky Bolt, who's got an 80 grade name, can run a bit, which is kind of nice being named Bolt, but that's life. And the Yankees signed Mike Montgomery to a minor league contract. That is useful information because I think he's the kind of guy that'll pop up somewhere down the line. And as a Cub fan, Mike Montgomery will always have a special place in my heart because of the 2016 World Series. Then we get to injuries. And with injuries, we have a lot to talk about. There are 15 COVID injuries. There's 5 hammies, 4 shoulders, 2 calves. We got 2 biceps. We got a triceps. We got a quadriceps. If it's a seps, it's out there and it's injured. And we'll go through that now. I mean, the big news just today, 2 key players got put on the COVID protocol. And that would be J.D. Martinez, the outfielder for the Boston Red Sox, or DH of the Boston Red Sox, how you want to word it. And outfielder Lourdes Gurriel Jr. joins Teoscar Hernandez on the COVID injury list for the Toronto Blue Jays, which, that creates some space. But those are all players that I like. Gurriel and Teoscar an awful lot, and Martinez I thought was a phenomenal bounce back pick, and they're all missing in action because of COVID. It seems like that is kind of crazy. There are all these things, and then you get past them. At the beginning of the week, you had Washington announce their COVID list, which put Alex Avila, Josh Bell, Yan Gomez, Patrick Corbin, Brad Hand. Brad Hand is a guy that I picked in a lot of leagues to be my reliever, and he hadn't played a game yet. Josh Harrison, John Lester, Jordy Mercer, and Kyle Schwarber. Those are the COVID guys for Washington moving. Some of those guys have already come back. Brad Hand was activated. I know that on Friday. The Pirates, with one of the biggest injuries, is the Pirates placed Kibran Hayes on 10-day with a wrist injury. There's really no timetable on it. It's probably going to be a little bit longer than that. The guy that replaced him, who has a very, very not memorable name, is actually doing quite well. It might be a viable 15-game replacement. I will get to it when I get to I will name his name in a few minutes when I get to that part. The Padres, Fernando Tatis, out for 10 days with left shoulder subluxation. Like I said, you saw it looked awful, and then you wondered. And then they said that they would tell you tomorrow something, and then tomorrow they said wait till after the MRI. And the MRI, they said positive things. But in that interim, we got to deal with the fact that the possibility that the guy you picked 3rd overall, and in a very weird thing this year, I'm in 5 leagues, and I've picked 3rd overall randomly in all of the leagues. And it's something I didn't really say on this thing, but I kind of downgraded Tatis a little bit. I talked about how the first 5 picks were really, really good. And so in my first draft, I drafted Tatis, and in my second draft, I drafted Tatis. But in my 3rd, 4th, and 5th drafts, which had the benefit of seeing Tatis get hurt in spring training, I had knocked him down to the 5th overall guy behind Betts and Betts and Trout. And so in one league I have Trout, and then the other 2 leagues I have Acuna, because they just miraculously fell to me at 3. So I feel like I should have said something about this, and I didn't. So I'm apologizing. But then they give you the thing, and they say that he's going to be out for. They said it might just be 10 days, which seems really, really unlikely based on what medical people know about this injury. Now, these guys are athletes at the top of their game. They're not 52-year-old, overweight white dudes from Florida who might take 3 months to get over this. And they can do some pretty special things that other people can't do. I remember a few years back when I used to play fantasy football, there was Marshall Falk tore his MCL, and he came back and played 3 weeks later, which is a biological impossibility. So I'm on the positive on this. I don't think he'll be back in 10 days, but I think that you should probably be prepared to be out for 3 weeks, maybe 4. So it's a short-term fill-in that you're looking for. You can't really bank on picking up the Bobby Witts and the Nico Horners to fill it out. They should keep an eye on C.J. Abraham. So if this thing goes south, I think the Padres are the kind that would pick up C.J. Abraham. So, well, I think the Padres are the kind of guys that are playing for this year, and they would do everything it takes to win. If they lost to Tatis, they might call up Abrams. But there's a lot of those guys out there. The Cardinals placed second baseman Colton Wong. No, he's not the Cardinals. Brewers placed second baseman Colton Wong on the 10-day with a left oblique. The Rockies utility player Chris Owings, I really like. They put him on the 10-day with a left thumb sprain, which is kind of funny because he got removed from a game because of a hamstring injury, and then all of a sudden his thumb was hurt. I really like Chris Owings, and I paid $85, and I mentioned it to pick him up in one league out of 1,000, and I own him in another league, and I'm not going to cut him based on this injury. I think that he can help out in a lot of ways, being a Colorado Rocky. He's hitting in the high 300s. He leads the league in triples with 3. There's some stuff. There's some good stuff. 2 stolen bases already. There's some good stuff there. The Tigers placed Miguel Cabrera today on the injured 10-day with left biceps earlier in the week. Julio Teheran went with right shoulder. The replacement call-up for Miguel Cabrera is Renato Nunez. And in deep kind of leagues, there seems to be a lot of first basemen that are available, but he's somebody that should be added to the list of back-end first basemen. The Mets placed third base outfielder J.D. Davis on the 10-day with left-hand contusion, and this is important to fantasy baseball players because this creates real space for Jonathan Villar, and Jonathan Villar can be a difference maker in roto leagues. So you can get Villar in your lineup, and if he's available, you pick him up because that's a sure source of steals. The Rays had their set of problems today. They put Chris Archer on with a 10-day with lateral forearm tightness. Earlier in the week, Pete Fairbanks on the 10-day IL with a right rotator cuff strain, and Kevin Kiermaier with a left quadriceps strain. He's the quadriceps guy. It just really ices the fact Diego Castillo is pretty much their only closer, which is something we went into the season thinking there would be a real mix, and the truth is Diego Castillo will probably be the primary closer for the first 2 months. Malpal's here. It's good to see a Malpal. And Andrea and Lenny do a show on Sirius XM radio, and which is really kind of funny because I don't listen to Sirius XM radio. I've never actually owned it, other than I own like some of the really, really crappy stock in some of my, in at least one of my 401k, not 401k, IRAs. But they had one of the Rays beat writer on today, and they probably talked about it. So if you go to Sirius and download the show, you probably hear more about that. I just think that the simple thing is Castillo will get the primary saves for the first 2 months, and I think that Nick Anderson, I accidentally drafted him in a draft because I was auto-picked due to stupidity on the part of one person in the league. But now I'm thinking, the truth is Nick Anderson might be pretty good for the second half of the season, and that's a draft and hold. So you got to pick a few players that are on the come, I imagine. So it's not the end of the world. I'm feeling better about it now that everyone else is gone. Yankees placed Gio Urshela on the 10-day with COVID side effects, so they pulled him off. And they also placed Odor on the 10-day for COVID intake protocols, but they're both been pulled off today. Dodgers placed Cody Bellinger on the 10-day list. He's the big first baseman who's out. Retro to the 6th with a left calf contusion. And they also put Tony Gonsolin on the 10-day with right shoulder inflammation. Which sort of paves the way with Dustin May's great performance for him to be the 5th starter. Not going to be a thing. I've actually released David Price in 2 leagues because I figure David Price is going to start 9 or 10 games, and 8 of them are going to be good, but you're not going to know when they are until the time comes. So I'll just fight it out with everyone else. And with that, we see Lenny Melnick show up after we talked long and hard about his Sirius show, something you guys should listen to. And Lenny's, of course, he's the bellwether. He's the working cow of this thing. He does Monday through Friday. I do Sunday. Andrew does Saturday. He's the guy that we rely on, and he's the guy that pays the bills, and so we thank him for this. We already talked about the Rangers placed Matt Bush on the 10-day, which really kind of ices Ian Kennedy as being their closer, and Brock Holt, who I kind of liked coming in. He's on the 10-day with a hamstring strain. The Blue Jays placed Hernandez and Gurriel on the COVID list, and Tyler Chatwood on a 10-day with a right triceps inflammation. Astros placed relief pitcher Inoli Paredes on a 10-day with right side soreness. In the preseason, when I said that I thought that Ryan Presley was a lock for the closer job, there were a couple people that gave me pushback and said that Inoli Paredes is someone they really like a lot. The more hurt he is, the more safe Presley is, but Presley was safe all along. The White Sox placed Tim Anderson on the 10-day, the left hamstring strain. It really didn't bring anybody worthwhile up. Mendick and Garcia are splitting it up. And then Billy Hamilton is on the 10-day with left hamstring strain, which is a situation where they really need an outfielder. They called I don't know who they called up just yet. The Diamondbacks placed Kettle Marty on the 10 days with the right hamstring strain. Same game that Owings pulled up limp in. Marte pulled up limp in, and he's a second baseman and an outfielder. This means that Tim LeCastro is getting time, and Tim LeCastro is a lifetime 250 hitter, but he's really good at getting on base because he could teach a master class on how to get hit by a pitch. You should go look into how often he gets hit by a pitch, and it's crazy. But he can take that 250 average, turn it into a 344 on base, and steal you 8 bases in the 2 months or whatever, in the 6 weeks that he gets to play a lot in the interim. He also and Joakim Soria was put on the 10-day with a strained left calf, which throws their bullpen into crisis mode because they also lost Chris Davinsky for some unknown personal reasons. Now, unknown personal reasons can take 2 flavors. The first flavor is they did something really, really awful and you'll never see them again. And the second flavor is there's something really wrong going on in their world. And you know what I think I did, which is something I always do, is I forget to plug in my laptop when I broadcast. And then it gives me a warning saying I'm losing power. So there we go. Everything is bright and great. That's my first major error of the day. Probably won't be my last. How much for Malpass? How much for LeCastro and $1,000 Fab? You know, I'd written a section about Fab, and I actually had a phone conversation with Kevin Hastings about it because he's doing a Fab podcast. Which when he told me he was doing that, it's like, well, you drew the short end of the stick, didn't you? Because Fab is the hardest thing in the world to predict because you don't know what other people are going to do. And, you know, I told him that if I were doing a Fab show, I would tell you this is exactly what this guy's worth, and I would never get any of these guys. So the real question when you go into a Fab thing is what you have to be realistic about what he's going to give you and what you're willing to pay for him. And what LeCastro is going to give you is a bunch of steals for the first 4 to 8 weeks of the season. He's not a permanent replacement, and because he's not a permanent replacement, you don't really want to do permanent damage to your bankroll. So he's not a guy that I'd be putting over there. Yeah, somebody in the chat room, Mitch Archer, said he wouldn't go above 80 in Fab, and that's 8 out of. He's in $1,000 league. That's 8 out of 100, which is about it. I think he's worth about 5, and you might have to go above that to get him because someone else is going to bid more. And there's half a chance that somebody in your league is going to bid 160 for him, and you're not going to get him. And the truth is, don't be mad. You never wanted to pay that kind of money anyway. So I think that's it. I think that I went through a pretty long process with Chris Owings trying to decide what I was going to bid for him last week, and I bid $85, which turned out to be much higher than it had to be. But that was the thing. It's like I felt I wanted to have him. I wanted to win that bid, so I bid about $30 more than it should be. Do you want to win the bid for? If you want to win the bid for LeCastro, you probably need to go over 80. Not by much. In Fab bids, I would generally say you don't want to bid. If you want a player, you don't want to bid 80 even or 75 even. You know, spend an extra $1 to give you a little bit of a gray spot. But anyway, where was I? Kettle Marty, that's the thing. And Joakim Soria, I really thought that Davinsky is a thing. I'm looking at those two guys. I'll probably get to it in some detail at the end, but the two guys that are battling out are Crichton and Ginkel. And the more that I look at it, my saying about picking a closer is you either want the guy that the management likes or you want the guy with the best stuff. And right now, we have no idea who the management likes because I thought they liked Davinsky. But the guy with the best stuff is Ginkel. And over time, does it mean he gets the next save? No, but over time, the better pitcher is going to prevail. Next, the Athletics placed A.J. Puck on the 10-day and Chad Pender on the 10-day. It makes some people that kind of had fallen out of the wayside more important. And I would actually say that Jed Lowry is probably my number one deep league second baseman because of this. Because Jed Lowry, when he's healthy, which is a rarity, but he is right now, he might actually be one of the best hitters on the A's. He's showing it so far. The Twins placed Brent Rooker on the 10-day with a cervical sprain. I only bring that up because I didn't even know men had cervixes. The Mariners placed outfielder Jake Fraley on the 10-day, James Paxton on the 10-day. Paxton's probably going to be gone for the rest of the way because Tommy John is being recommended for the left hand. They're both gone. Nationals lose setup man Will Harris. The Marlins put starting pitcher Eliezer Hernandez on the 10-day with the right bicep formations. I read a tweet from a Hispanic baseball writer saying that he's already throwing off a mound. Eliezer Hernandez will be back sooner than you think. Orioles put outfielder Austin Hayes on the 10-day. And the only other note to mention is that Trevor Rosenthal and Kirby Yates both got moved to the 60, which means that they're not going to be the closers for their teams this year. Activations this week: Nationals activated from that list of COVID people: Avila, Gomez, Mercer, and Hand already. The Diamondbacks activated Cole Calhoun, which is a guy that I drafted in a number of leagues. He was massively discounted because of the injury, and he's already back. He basically pushed them to get back because he wanted to play opening day, and they were sort of hurting because of Kettle Marty being out. I think that he's a guy that his batting average of late has been lower than it was in the good days with the Angels, but he actually is a Phoenix. He's from the Phoenix area. He likes playing there. He's going to lead the team. He's probably going to lead the team in home runs. And I don't think that, even though you probably should bank on him hitting not that great, 230 or so, I don't think that him hitting 260 or 270 is out of the question. And in one of the leagues I picked him up in, which was a draft and hold league, where they put best ball where they put in the guys in, he's one of those guys that is incredibly streaky. He's going to have 3 or 4 weeks this season where he's a top 10 player in baseball. But that's just no. It's not just my opinion. It's going to happen. Yeah, my glasses are a little bit smudged. Red Sox activated Eduardo Rodriguez. He pitched a decent little game. Marlins activated Garrett Cooper. The Yankees activated Aroldis Chapman. And the Rays activated last year's hero of the National League Championship Series, Brett Phillips, to play outfield for them. I'm getting your Saturday video at the same time as Doug. How did that happen? We should be on 2 different broadcast boxes, YouTube boxes. You've probably turned both on. So turn hers off, or turn mine off and listen to her show from yesterday. Andrea is saying that Dinelson Lamet and Zach Gallen could be activated the week. That is true. I read that about Gallen. The tweet that I saw said that the pitch, I think the curveball was the pitch that was hurting when he threw it, that he was not experiencing pain with that. Lamet, I'll see it when I see it. Mel Pell says, I'm an NL only way I have extra saves. I need infielder. Is Nearest or Calhoun fair? I've offered Taylor or Grisham and was rejected. I don't know if it's like the trade might be fair, but I don't know if I would take it because of the fact that the closer situation in most places is so in flux. I wouldn't trade a player I consider a good piece for a closer who has the job, who I didn't I didn't feel 90% was going to keep it, and Nearest falls in that category. Here's how I stopped. There's a live chat room going on at LennyMelnickFantasySports.com. You can see the thing down here at the bottom. If there's things in there, I will react to that. I try not to. This week, there were a number of demotions. The Yankees sent down Mike Ford, so he's not part of the first base mix, even with Voit out. But the worst one for me is I was high on Domingo Germán going into the season. He had a great spring training, and I'm surprised that I only drafted him in one league because apparently people were higher than me on him. But they outrighted him. The ensuing call up is for Alberto Abreu, who is a pretty decent prospect, but I think he's really more for the bullpen. I would keep an eye. I can't imagine that Michael King's 6-inning run coming in for relief for either came in for Herman or Kluber as passing up. So that, I can see a situation where they bring up Abreu for 4 or 5 days, and when they need a starter, they bring King back. The Orioles option Carter Kieboom, goodbye. They also optioned third baseman Pat Valaika, who is kind of a guy that I thought was a little bit of a sleeper player this year. If you look over his last 150 games, he has hit 25 home runs, and I thought he might be one of those guys who gets dumped in Orioles and just gets a chance to play, but apparently not. And they optioned the relief pitcher from last year, Cole Sulzer, who we always had fun with his name. Red Sox option Tanner Houck to make room for Eduardo Rodriguez. We always sort of know that was a temporary thing. The Tigers outrighted Christian Stewart, which means that their outfield, going into the season, everyone thought that their outfield was going to be Stewart, Grossman, and Mazzara, with Victor Reyes being the fourth outfielder. The Tigers outfielders now is Baddoo, Grossman, and Mazzara, with Reyes being the fourth outfielder. They do, with benefit of having a DH, and now with Miggy on the reserve, there's going to be a lot of playing time for those guys, even Ronaldo Nunez. And then the Blue Jays sent catcher Reese McGuire to alternate site, which locks in Alejandro Price, who might be the best hitting catcher in baseball, as the number 2 catcher. Call-ups this week. Starting today for the Rays, they called up Brent Honeywell. I think he's going to be the opener. Maybe he'll pitch 2 innings. He is a guy that was once a very highly rated prospect and still is a pretty highly rated prospect. And for Rays fans, they've been waiting for this for a while. I think he's going to be good, but I thought that about a lot of their other pitchers too, like Jose De Leon and Brandon McKay. And I'm not going to jump and run after the guy. They also acted the contract earlier in the week of Hunter Strickland to help out in their damaged bullpen. He was the Pete Fairbanks replacement. The Mets and the Brewers selected some contracts, and the Mets selected relief pitcher Trevor Hilgenberger. That falls in the mix. Diaz is still a solid closer, but he's also the scariest of all the solid closers, but he is a solid closer. And the Brewers selected a relief pitcher, Brad Boxberger, for the same reason, but these are 2 names from the past that have done some closing. But the interesting is that the Mets and the Brewers both selected guys that might help you in stolen bases. The Mets selected the contract of Jose Peraza. I've never been the biggest fan of him, but the truth is he can run and he can hit a little bit. And the Brewers selected the contract of third baseman Jace Peterson. And with the Hura injury, Jace Peterson is going to be playing third for them. And he's a guy that he's had a 2-3 week stretch where he was very relevant as a fantasy player, and he can run. So he might be a stopgap guy for Brian Hayes if you're out, because if you added Brian Hayes' very good numbers with Jace Peterson's 2.5 weeks, you might get to add 6 stolen bases to that your third base slot for the year if you have that capacity. White Sox selected the contract of Nick Williams. Nick Williams was a former Phillies prospect. He was almost at a time, like no one ever said Nick Williams without saying Rhys Hoskins. And many people thought Nick Williams was a better prospect, but it never sort of came to be. But that's how desperate they are for a left fielder. That's the guy that's going to play. Could he catch lightning in a bottle? I don't know. It's happened before. It's happened in Chicago on the White Sox with a guy named Yerman. And they also recalled Danny Mendick to play some shortstop. Not that important. Seattle recalled Braden Bishop. Braden Bishop has some chops to him. Deep leagues, he might be relevant. And they also recalled right-hand pitcher L.J. Newsome, who I only bring up because there is a pitcher named L.J. spelled L-J-A-Y, and there's a pitcher named T.J. spelled T-E-J-Y. And I just think that I guess it's better than all those Trevors. But just kind of strange. L-J-A-Y is pronounced L-J. A's recalled Seth Brown, who he's a good hitter. And he walks enough, and he hit like 27 home runs in the minors. And he already hit a home run last night. And he'll get some playing time in there. But the A's are going back to what they once were, which is a team that plays a lot of guys, a lot of different positions, and gives a lot of guys days off. So unless you're in the core, which Seth Brown is not, he may not be rosterable, but he is watchable. The Yankees are called Albert Abreu. The Orioles are called Ryan McKenna, who could help you with steals. The Marlins are called pitcher Nick Nieder. The Dodgers were called Dennis Santana. The Blue Jays selected the contract of, I got this just for George Hubschman, of Tommy Malone, because that's his favorite pitcher. And the Tigers recalled Alex Lang and called up Ronald Nunez. Alex Lang was a first-round pick of the Chicago Cubs about 3 years ago, and he went over in the trade that brought lousy players from the Tigers. I'm trying to remember who they were. It was the Castellanos trade. That was a good trade. So that's all right. Let me stop me while I get a drink. And those are all the call-ups, and we're 36 minutes into it. This is the thing that I wanted to do. Is like we're a week into this thing. We're a week into this, and many of these guys do the hot or not section. And for me, I'm going to call it sanctioned or sanctioned, because sanction means both we like it and it's forbidden. So I'm just playing with words here. But I went and looked at right now after 10 days in, there are, and this is just on the hitter side, most pitchers haven't pitched more than 2 games. It's too early yet to make a real judgment as to whether they're going to be good or not. Case in point, I watched Johnny Cueto's first game, and I let him go for garbage. And then the second game was literally the third best pitched game of the week, behind a no-hitter and a wonderful opening day shutout by Lance Lynn. But in the top 30 right now in 5x5 leagues, there are 8 players that were preseason ranked by Yahoo at 192 or beyond. And then the question is, are these players for real or not? And you can answer you can tell me your opinion in the live chat, but I'll tell you my opinion as we go through it. Right now, when I looked at the thing this morning, the number 1 player in the Yahoo's 5x5 is Tyler Naquin. He's got 5 home runs, 14 RBIs, hitting .333, got a stolen base. Now, there's absolutely no way in hell he's going to remain number 1. But I think that he's actually a pretty good player. My biggest worry about him is the fact that they are the team with 6 outfielders for 2 spots, because Nick Castellanos is definitely getting 1. And, everyone likes – I think the Reds would be a better team, actually, if they kind of like move Nick Senzel back into the infield. They want Winker and Senzel to be great, and they just haven't been all that great, but they're okay. But even Aristides Aquino is 3 for 12 with 2 home runs this year. And Shogo Akiyama is probably the best of the bunch of getting on base. Naquin has shown in the past. His rookie year, he had a great first half of the season. Just 2 years ago, in 2018, as a fill-in for the Indians, he actually managed a 1,000 OPS for over a month of the season. Not for the whole season, because he has trouble hitting lefties, but this is in him. And I would pick it up as a stopgap and everything. He's approved for emergency use everywhere. At number 9 is Ryan McMahon. He's hitting .273 with 5 home runs, 12 RBIs, .333. I'm not crazy about this one, partially because He had one game with 3 home runs, which kind of skews that a little bit upward, but he has what McMahon has versus the other guys is he's got some level of trust of their management, and he does play a number of positions. So there's a reason for this, but he's not going to be anywhere. He's not going to finish anywhere near the top 100 when this is all said and done. Number 3 is the guy everyone's talking about, Yermin Mercedes. He's number 10. He was preseason ranked by Yahoo at 1,110. So of course he's going to be awesome. And he has 2 home runs, 7 RBIs, hitting a paltry 556. He's the guy that goes into a game. It goes 2 for Kim. We got this here from Facebook user. Kim said that. What's your take? I think that Kim is the biggest recipient of the time off that Tatis get. I don't think Tatis's time off is going to be more than 4 weeks. I don't believe for a second that he is someone that the Padres would intend to play every day if they had a choice. I think that Profar and Cronenworth are 2 guys that they would rather play, and they're going to use him as a fill-in to give people time off. Maybe now that Tatis is when he comes back, he's going to be pre-injured. Maybe they give him a little bit more time off, and Kim gets those games. But I think that most of his game is hitting for average and getting on base. I don't think that he's going to do enough of the other stuff, playing 3 days a week, to be that important. Now, for the next 3 weeks, he's going to play all the time. And as I've said about everybody, is that once they get a shot, some people can seize it. Tyler Naquin has seized it. Akil Baddoo has seized it. Yermin Mercedes has seized it, which gets rid of him. So, yeah, he's a fill-in. That's all I'm going to say. He's a fill-in. And if you're in a 16, I play in a 16-team, 30-man roster, 20 league minors. If Tatis goes down, you don't have a lot of choice. The truth is, the guys that would fill in right away are Cronenworth and Kim. They're owned everywhere too. But if Kim's your fill-in for Tatis, you're going to be okay for the next month. You're not getting Tatis numbers, but you're going to survive. Back to Yermin Mercedes. The interesting thing about Yermin Mercedes is there's no reason to believe that he's this good. But the more interesting thing is the White Sox have chosen to play Yermin Mercedes and the other catcher on their roster, Zach Collins, on 2 occasions, and in both occasions, Zach Collins caught, and Yermin Mercedes was the hitter, which means that, it probably means that Yermin Mercedes is a worse fielder than Zach Collins, which, take a second to let that sink in. You're a worse catcher than Zach Collins. I think at age 52, I'm back, I think. And we're still live. You got to see that 5 minutes of blackness, huh? I'm sitting in the middle of a real torrential downpour. It's going to rain all day. It's been a fairly quiet year for the rain. If you've been a long time listener of the Dugout, this happens about 4 or 5 times a year. Lightning is very, very prevalent in Central Florida, most of Florida. When I coached baseball for 2 years, and I worked as an ombudsman for the league for 2 years. And the most common reason why a Little League game would be called is because of lightning strikes or fear of lightning strikes. I'm going to take a second to get my notes back up. I am like a moron. I have everything done online. I don't know why I do it that way. Don't want that. But it is the way I do things because I don't like the way my penmanship looks. We were talking about your Mercedes when I left off, and the point being, the White Sox chose Urban Mercedes to play DH. This could be a telltale thing about his defensive capabilities, or it might be that things are just going so well for him that they didn't want to mess with his routine, and they'd be much happier keeping him at DH. That could be the case. But however you slice it, I actually think Zach Collins is a pickup because Yasmani Grandal is the kind of catcher. He's not Yadi Molina or Salvador Perez where you might get 145 games out of him, but he's in the next tier. He's pretty much a lock for 120, which means there's only about 40 games out there besides that. Now, in some places, you're lucky enough that your Mercedes is already a catcher. Strangely enough, Yahoo's not like that, and there's a couple of other places like that. He's not like that on NFBC, which are the two places I play most of my leagues on. But I don't think that your Mercedes will get catcher eligibility this year, or if he does, it'll be late August, early September. But your Mercedes, do you believe it? Well, you ride it while it's hot. I don't believe it for a second. There's nothing in his background that says he's this good. I do have a saying that sometimes you need to predict the unpredictable. It's what I call a Scooter Gennett rule. Sometimes a guy that's been a scrub for a while all of a sudden gets good for reasons unknown. Wink, wink, reasons unknown. And I said the idea was to try to predict the unpredictable. I don't know how you do that. So I tried to look at all the players that were these guys that went from nothing to something important. And there were some things about them that were fairly common. Like, for instance, they were on their third team or more. And another one would be that at some point in their career, they were considered to be a decent prospect. Because basically, it's the expectation that the players should have an expectation that they should be a good baseball player, and they should be sort of at the end of the line of their career. And your Mercedes, the White Sox are his third organization just in the minors. He's been traded several times, and this is his one shot. And some people get their one shot, like I did with my Johnson & Johnson, and they take advantage of it. But the real truth is this: is that the underpinning of the Scooter Gennett rule is if a person is at the end of the line where you might consider it rational for them to take performance-enhancing drugs, sometimes they get better, and we just need to believe that they're not doing those drugs. Hello, Lenny. Hello, Mitch. Hello, Andrea. I'm back. If you hear me, let me... Oh, you know what I didn't do? No, it's the same broadcast, so it should be there. I'm going to type into the chat room that Anyway, that's it. I actually have this out here as a banner. This is going to be one of my banners. Torrential downpours in Central Florida. I might lose power. If I lose power, I lose power. That was one that I pre-set up for this thing. Mercedes will cool off. But the other guy, Zach Collins, he's 3 for 12 with a home run or two. And he's a real power guy. He's the kind of guy that could benefit from playing DH a lot. And I would have guessed that he would have taken the bats away from Mercedes, because no one would have guessed that Mercedes was going to hit 556. In his minor league career, he's not a horrible hitter. He's one of those guys that had a year or two in his minors over 300, hit 270, 280 most of those years. Usually with a catcher, they'll take a step back when they make the leap to the pros, because the rigor of playing catcher takes a toll on stuff. But Melpal says that 280 with 20 home runs seems reasonable for Mercedes. That does. However, I could see a situation where, he started, 8 games to start the season. Maybe he only starts 40 games total. Because if he's not hitting like this, there's not a place for him. And the truth is, they're a little bit, the guy that Mercedes is holding back is the guy they really like, which is Andrew Vaughn. And they're not sold on him as being their left fielder. In a pinch, sure. 15, 20 games a year? Possibly. But not full time. Number 4 on the list is a first baseman that we talked a lot about before the season by the name of Jared Walsh. And Jared Walsh has, in a combination with Pujols realizing the Angels' first baseman, and I think he's going to be that all along, and he is good. He's a good player for power, and he can hit 2. And he can hit 275, and he hit 30. I think he had 36 home runs in the minors in 2019. He was one of the guys that if you listen to our before season show, if you listen to, I talked about waiting at first base and picking up a Dahlbeck or a Walsh. And there's a couple of names on the list: Mitch Moreland, Nate Lau. And Nate Lau's on this list too at number 9. He's so far the number 27 rated guy in baseball. 3 home runs, 14 RBIs. He even picked up a steal. He's hitting 250. These numbers do not seem unreasonable, except the RBIs are fortuitous. The starting with 14 RBIs. Will Walsh play the right field is being asked in the chat room, and yeah, it could happen. But it's going to have to wait for the inevitable demise of Justin Upton. When Justin Upton, goes on a 60 deal with a paper cut or whatever his problem is this time, he hasn't been able to stay afloat as a baseball player for quite a long time, and I don't think he'll be able to do it either. And even if he were afloat, he's a low average, a lot of home run guy, and those guys are a dime a dozen. Well, not a dime a dozen. Number 4 on the list was Walsh. Number 5 is Chris Owings, who got placed on the deal with the thumb sprain. And I told you that, considering his position eligibility, he's played second base, outfield already this year. I know in some places he's only a second baseman. In Yahoo, he's already second base, shortstop, third base, outfielder. Very good pickup in that. Cedric Mullins, the leadoff hitter for the Baltimore Orioles. He's the number 26 player. And speaking of funny outfielders, Juan Lagares is their new right fielder. The real problem with Walsh going to right field is there's no real proof that Pujols is any good at first base at his age. And the truth is, in that right field spot, there are names that, for the Angels, that we want to see. We'd like to see Joe Adell get every day at bats. We'd like to see Brandon Marsh get every day at bats. Even Taylor Ward has the similar pedigree to Jared Walsh. A lot of home runs at Salt Lake with the Bees. And Juan Lagares is not the guy you want. And the strange thing too is that he's really known for defense. It's odd that he's not that Trout gets to play center field because Trout is a good center fielder, but he's not a great center fielder. And Lagares, if he has one attribute, it's ability to cover a lot of ground. At number, so that's a list. The last name on the list is Phillip Evans. That's the third baseman for the Pirates. I couldn't think of earlier, but he's hitting 391 with 3 home runs, and he hit like 356 last year in limited play. But everyone had limited play last year. There's a chance that he could be this guy. He could be a 300-plus hitter with a little bit of power. And in deep leagues, you're not going to replace what Brian Higgs brings to the table. Hear that pinging in the back? Somebody is, I think, reattaching their fence. But anyway. Others to note on this list of guys that are just having great years start out, the guys that did not make the top 30. Well, one of them did. There's the 3 catchers, Christian Vasquez, Tucker Barnhart, and Omar Narvaez, 4 catchers, because Yadi's on the list too, Yadi Molina. And none of those will stick, but Vasquez was grossly underdrafted. He went in most leagues as the 9th or 10th catcher, and the truth is he's probably more like the 3rd or 4th best. What he can give you is real Muto-type numbers, a bit of steal of draft. If he's available in your leagues, grab him, but he probably isn't. But he's one of the few catchers. He actually has 2 stolen bases on top of a pretty good average and some home runs. Next name is number 34 is Garrett Hampson, and Garrett Hampson is fool's gold. He's a one-trick guy. He steals your bases, and you didn't start him in that game where he stole 3 bases, so you're not getting those. I think people are going a little too nuts about him. He did have a good last 15 days of 2019, but that's about it. He's a career 309 on base guy, which is 10% better than Billy Hamilton, and Billy Hamilton's twice the stolen base guy he has. Ride it while it's hot. He might get some stolen bases, but he's fool's gold. He's just a stolen base guy. That's all he is. Mitch Harston talking about Dane Dunning and pitcher for the. I always get Dane Dunning and Matt Manning confused. Dane Dunning is the pitcher for Texas, and he's also talking about Joe Ross. And Joe Ross is the guy we've always been thinking might be something for them, but has never really shown it. Well, I mean, he's played short stints. You could do worse than these guys. Joe Ross is available in a lot of leagues as a pitcher, and if you're in a kind of league where, you're 15 team, he's a guy you might look at. I've been in leagues where I've looked at guys like Chris Flexen. I'd rather have Johnny Cueto than him, sure. One of the guys that's widely available is Carlos Rodon. I'd rather have than Dane Dunning. And I guess my real knock on Dunning is he's on such a bad team that he's got to produce a lot to make up for the fact that he probably won't win 7 games this year, even if he started all the games. Joe Ross is a different story. Yeah, in an only league, I have this thing about only leagues. It's like if the guy plays, you play him. That's it. Not a lot of thought to it. He even like Kyle Gibson, who's been pitching horribly, is probably not benched in an only league because you need to get the innings, and there's not enough players to go around. So I always have it funny. There's 2 things that I don't like. One is, I don't like talking about only leagues because it's been a while since I saw this, but about 7 years ago, Yahoo put out a breakdown of what people are playing, and most people play in 10 or 12 team leagues. Most people play head to head over Roto, though Roto is about 30%. It's a sizable enough minority. The people who play in only leagues was less than 1%. It's such a small group. So one thing that fantasy industry guys like myself do, because it is a little more fun to talk about these deep things, is that we'll talk about deep leagues, and that's one thing I'm committed to in this show, is that I'm going to talk about shallow leagues and deep leagues, and I'm going to give shallow its due. Other guys on this list that are doing real well, Nick Senzel, Isaiah Kiner Falefa is playing as if he's an elite shortstop, not just a guy that could play shortstop. Michael A. Taylor, Mark Canha, who I really like. He's at 282. That's believable. He's got good on base skills, and he bats leadoff for those guys. Jonathan India, Akil Baddoo, Evan Longoria. Longoria, I'm not crazy about. The big thing is playing time for each team, and boy, I'm going to talk for way too long. But hey, you can be in here listening to me, and you can chat. So Calhoun was activated. I'm going to go team by team. Arizona, Calhoun was activated, batting second. I'm pro him. LaCastro had 4 outfield starts of 7, all at leadoff. So he's the guy that's batting leadoff versus right-handed pitchers. David Peralta got a day off versus a lefty, just something to make a note of. Josh Rojas is up to 5 starts at shortstop, which in some places gives him that eligibility. When Joe Perdomo, who's a call-up, plays the other games, and he bats 8th, I don't think they think of him as being a permanent solution of anything. Pavin Smith, a guy that had some prospect rate, has had 5 starts in the outfield. One of those, he batted leadoff. And then, of course, Marte's on the AL. The Atlanta Braves, Travis d'Arnaud, who a lot of people are big on as a catcher, he's caught 6 or 7 games so far. And Ender Inciardi's role seems pretty clear. He's going to give Acuna a day off, and he's going to be a late-inning fill-in for defensive reasons. There's no reason to roster Ender Inciardi. The Cubs actually had their catcher, Wilson Contreras, lead off, which is kind of odd, though it happens more than not. Ian Happ leads off most other days. Their preference for the backup in center field is Jake Marisnick when Happ's not there. They haven't played anyone else in center so far. And for the most part, David Boat is getting the nod over Sogard at second base, but not today, so it's getting even closer to that. That's a stay away, except for in only leagues. Cincinnati Reds, Winker was sick for 4 games, got hurt for 1 more. That's the Winker story. He might be able to hit a little bit, but he always seems to find a reason to not be in the lineup. Tyler Naquin has played every game except for opening day, and that's going to go on for as long as Herman Mercedes is playing well. No, for as long as he's hitting the way he is. They can't keep out of the lineup. And Tucker Barnhart is catching 2 out of every 3 games, so not only is he hitting reasonably well, and he's always been a catcher, hits the ball hard, but his division with Tyler Stevenson is 2-1, which is better than a lot of divisions at catcher. Garrett Hampson, Rockies. Garrett Hampson led off 3 games, then he dropped in the lineup. Fuentes missed 2 games. Tapia missed 1, all due to minor injuries. Alan Trejo called up for Chris Owings. I consider this a good news for Chris Owings thing, because Alex Trejo is not somebody that you're thinking about. He's a placeholder. He's an easy send down. He did hit 15. He had a good spring and did hit 15 home runs in 2019, and in Coors Field that could be something. The one thing that I think I've said before is Dom Nunez has hit 3 home runs. He has 3 hits, but he seems to be getting the good side of that platoon. The Dodgers, Betts is dealing with. He's not going to EL, but he's dealing with lower back stiffness. He's already missed 3 games this year. Will Smith is catching 6 out of 10, which is different than what they had said going in, which is a recurrent theme. Is you can't believe everything that they say. Jorge Alfaro of the Marlins has missed 3 games with a hamstring issue. A fairly irrelevant Chad Wallach takes his place. Adam Duvall has been benched 3 of 8 games, probably due to his poor start. He has yet to hit a home run. I think he has 1 hit. He's looking very Jack Peterson-ish. And Garrett Cooper came off the IL, so it made room for Cooper. I'd worry about Duvall a little bit. I wouldn't necessarily cut him, but you're going to have to wait for him to warm up in a part-time role, so he's benchable. Brewers called up Jace Peterson, we talked about, might be a thing, stolen base-wise. Lorenzo Cain missed 3 games but returned. Travis Shaw is batting 4th, so they might be the worst team in baseball, at least the worst offense. I think that they're just like I'll say about some other things. I think that the Brewers are out of the race for the NL Central. It's going to be won by a team with barely 90 wins, but it won't be the Brewers. They're not going to hit enough. The Mets, James McCann has caught every game for them. And then Jonathan Villar, we told you, was a pickup. He's going to line up at third base, at least for the duration of the J.D. Davis injury. And Villar is somebody I'd want 10 times over Hampson. Pittsburgh Pirates, Phillip Evans is replacing Kike Bryan, batting fifth and doing a pretty good job. The center field has been evenly split between Dustin Fowler and Anthony Alford. I had high hopes for Alford, but the playing time is keeping me from rostering him. I kind of lump him and Akil Baddoo in a fairly similar category, and Baddoo would be over Alford in every instance. And Colin Moran is a pretty good cleanup hitter. He had 10 home runs last year. He's probably the guy that has the best chance to hit 30 home runs that no one talked about at all during the preseason, because he's a halfway decent player on a bad team. But there's a reason why they were willing to give up Bell. I mean, part of it's because they were cheap and they're not a good team. Part of it's because Moran is capable at first base, and he fits in that category with Dahlbeck and Moreland and Walsh. Though I do think that Moran is a little better hitter for average of the five skills. Philadelphia Phillies, some people are hoping for Roman Quinn to do something. He's only got 2 starts this year. He has stolen some bases there, and sometimes a guy that plays less but steals bases is better than a guy that plays more and drags down your average. San Diego Padres, Trent Grisham's return to the lineup, center field, bat lead off. It's hard to say exactly what that impact is because he returned while they had the DH in play. So we're going to have to wait till Monday or Tuesday to really discern the long-term effects of this. This includes the thing with Kim, because they're going to have to play one less hitter in a non-DH environment. San Francisco Giants, LaStella was battling a hand injury. It was battling an injury, and he batted leadoff on Saturday. That's good news. Wilmer Flores, who's a guy that we all liked but didn't have a position, has actually played 6 of 8 games. He seems to be taking time away from Brandon Belt. Brandon Belt has missed 4 of 8. The Belt thing is, he's not hitting very well. He made a mental lapse in the first game, and he kind of rushed back from some injuries, and I'm thinking that they're not through his system yet. Their most common outfield so far this year is Yastrzemski, Dubon, and Austin Slater, which means that Dickerson's not getting the time he wants. But Slater's an interesting guy because he's a guy that actually he doesn't have a ton of power, but he could be a 15-15 kind of guy. Think of Kevin Pillar on a good year, batting wise. Kevin Kiermaier, no, not that much stolen base, but he can steal bases. St. Louis Cardinals, Goldschmidt missed the game, so what? They've actually pushed Matt Carpenter, who's not a good player, in the lineup 3 times. It seems like they're playing a 3-way platoon with Edman playing all the time and Carpenter playing versus lefties and Justin Williams playing the outfield versus righties and Edman moving back between the two. Nothing really to look at with Williams and Carpenter. Don't be fooled by the what we once thought Carpenter was. Washington Nationals are impossible to read because of those COVID things. The Orioles called up Brian McKenna. Pedro Severino is a viable bet. He's a good catcher in 2 catcher leagues. Might be back end in a 12 catcher 1 league. He's caught every game but 1. Ryan Mountcastle has moved into the outfield with the Austin Hayes injury, making Mancini play first base. So Mountcastle and Mancini both are playable. The Boston Red Sox starting center fielder for most games is Enrique Hernandez, who is hitting under 200. When he's out, Christian Arroyo plays second. They've sat Bobby Dahlbeck for 2 games. I think it's because of the poor start. Something you do it to make people think. Marwin Gonzalez has played every game but 1. He's started 2 games at first base to give Dahlbeck's thing, but he started at left field, shortstop, second base, and third base once. Marwin Gonzalez is doing what Marwin Gonzalez does. See if his hitting comes around, he could be useful, definitely useful in AL only. But then again, who isn't? The White Sox are getting disillusioned with it looks like they're getting disillusioned with Vaughn in left field. Like I said, they're bringing up Nick Williams to play that in left field. Hope if he hits pretty well, that means that Vaughn might be on the bench for a little bit, or at least until Yerman Mercedes cools off. Luis Garcia and Danny Menda covering for Tim Anderson. Zach Collins is I think that by the end of the year, Zach Collins will be the better catcher, stat wise, over Yerman Mercedes, even with this incredible start, which is mostly just hits. It's not like he's way ahead in home runs. Mel Pell, so he got sniped on Moran. Colin Moran is for CI and wound up with Shaw. And with that, I give him my condolences. There should be a team of guys that just, I don't know, that I just don't know how they manage to keep finding new teams. Oh, yeah, you made me think of Jack Peterson, so I lost my train of thought. The thing about Jack Peterson, and this is true. A long time ago, there was this good fielding Seattle Mariner infielder by the name of Mario Mendoza, who was such a good fielder that they kept him on the team even though he could barely hit 200. And because of that, he's permanently remembered as the Mendoza line, the guy that hit 200. And I think it's just been too long. Half the people that play fantasy baseball never saw Mario Mendoza play. Now, who should we name that line after? It's like, who's the only guy in baseball to parlay a 190 batting season into a $7 million contract? That's the guy that should be named after. The Jack Peterson line. So if you hear me say the Jack Peterson line, I'm talking about the Mendoza line, but I've updated it for 2021. Cleveland Indians leadoff batter versus lefties is Jordan Luplow. If you're in a situation where you can actually platoon in the league, which I've never been in, he's worth getting in versus lefties. Gamble is versus righties, but Letty's boy Andres Jimenez started in the outfield last night, so I like Jimenez too. I think that it would be nice to see him play. I don't think he's going to usurp. He's not going to usurp Luplow's place versus lefties, but he could very easily usurp Ben Gamble's versus righties because Gamble's nothing to sneeze at. So that's something to watch. Aman Rosero started in center field Friday. And Yu Chang and Jake Bowers are platooning at first base. Chang on the weak side lefty, so he's not in the mix as a possible shortstop replacement in deep leagues. Because Tigers, they need to learn that Badu should start every game. Harold Castro is the odd man out, though he has been getting some starts at first base. I think Renato Nunez will take that first base spot with Miggy out, Mazara to DH, and Badu should play most games going forward because the Mazara move to DH makes that outfield. Who else do they have? Harold Castro? Nobody. So is Badu going to hit 500? No, but I'm bigger on him than the other guys because I think that he is the fastest guy in the Tigers. He can steal some bases. He can hit for a little bit of power, and he's always been able. His batting average might be low, but one skill that he did show in the minors was the capacity to take pitches. He had like 11 walks this spring training. In addition to everything else, he walked 11 times. So he could be. He will help you in stolen bases, and he will get on base enough to not lose the job, even when his batting average drops into the 250s. Astros, Michael Brantley missed 3 games. The interesting thing is Almeida Diaz played outfield in his absence. Almeida Diaz is a hitter, terrible fielder, but he's a hitter. If he played more in there. Kansas City Royals, I mentioned before that Kyle Isbell, Hanser Alberto, Whit Merrifield were going to be in a platoon. It seems that Isbell is doing so well that they're sort of forgetting the Alberto part, which means that Merrifield is playing mostly second base. Merrifield's actually started every game so far this season in second base, and Isbell has started 5 of 6 in right field. In the Angels, we talked about a little bit with the Pujols thing. I think Pujols is ready to stay on the bench, be a pinch hitter, be a role player, be a team player. There's a cat joining me. Hi. Hi,
Hi,
cat.
Douglas. Hold on a second. I'm not a cat. Hold on.
You
I
are a
can't hear
cat.
you. Just one sec. I got to change my settings.
Buxton missed 2 days with a non-COVID illness. Luis Arias has dropped to the 9th in the batting order, if you haven't noticed. And Kyle Garlick is batting second. He's another guy I don't care about. Which I say that about players, so I'm hoping that they'll bite me in the ass and we'll have a great player, but Garlick won't be that guy. Urshela missed 1 with the COVID thing. Brent Gardner has played 4 of the last 6 games for the Yankees. I think he's a bigger part of that mix than people think. And this is Andrea, and she's stuck where she's stuck.
No, I'm playing. Hi.
Now she's a...
Hi, Douglas.
You're an ostrich.
I just came to play with you for a minute.
No, it's perfectly okay. I just I wrote a lot of things down. I'm going to talk and keep talking. It seems like there's still people in the chat room. I'll break this up into 2 different spots. But as I said at the beginning, like the one thing I need to learn is how much I need to write for myself. I have a real, like a guttural need to be complete. Like it's hard for me to leave people off, and I got to learn how to do that. You know.
Like you just want to talk about everybody? Is that your problem?
Well, I feel like if I talk about 13 different teams' close situations, why would I not talk about the other 14, even just to say, well, these 5 are set. You know, like it's like I got to learn what I don't need to talk about, but I feel like I'll miss something.
Well, you can stay on all day if you want and talk about baseball, because you know what? I will listen. We will talk.
Yeah, no, that's what this is about. It's a place for people to hang out. And I got a little bit more to go because I'm still going to do my recommendations. I actually had 4 sections, and I'm ending section 3.
Okay.
So, I probably have about a half hour, which isn't too bad. I mean, I'll talk in it. In my head, when I designed this, I thought that I'll do at least a minimum of 30 minutes, but I'll do as much as 90. I won't be that much over 90.
What kind of sections do you have? Tell me your sections.
The whole thing is, the whole concept of the show is waiver wire in context, and so you kind of have to know who's injured to know who's playing, and you got to know what they're doing with their batting order to know who's playing. So before you recommend somebody, it's like you might like somebody, but you don't want to recommend somebody who's, like, oh, I really like this pitcher, but his next starts in Coors Field, so maybe you wait a week. You got to have the context. I might really I like Mitch Moreland, but I'm not going to recommend him because it looks like Seth Brown is replacing him at DH, at least until Moreland figures some things out. I think that when all is said and done, Moreland will be a decent player and be the DH, but he's not that guy now. And so I wouldn't recommend them now. I'd recommend somebody else. So I did add the one thing about the surprise guys this week, which is why there's 4 and not 3 sections, which is why this is going to go past 90 minutes by a little bit. But those are the things. Like, I'm on the A's, right? Mark Canha's hitting 282, completely reproducible, batting first in every game, and he knows how to walk.
Yes.
He's one of the more important outfield pickups. But until you put it in that context, he's just Mark Canha. You know what I mean?
Well, okay, so you were talking about Chris Owings earlier. Did you know he's hurt too?
Yeah, he's hurt too, but it's only going to be 10 days.
Okay.
It's going to be the minimum. They didn't pull. They have some guys in their minors that they want to see, and the guy they pulled up to replace him is sort of a nobody. So I don't think they think it's going to be very long. And it's his thumb. It's not the hamstring.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so I just wanted to say hello. Do you know what this cat? When I put the cat up, do you know what that is?
Well, I know that there was a viral video about a guy he was in court and he was the cat.
Yeah.
And I was trying to find the cat myself and I couldn't do it. Someone told me it was a Snapchat filter, but I couldn't find that one.
It is. It's this cat here. This is the cat. So like all of a sudden his his camera was just a cat. He was like, "I'm not a cat. I'm not a cat." The judge is like, "I know you're not a cat." He's like, "I'm ready to move on."
The thing that's crazy about that one is so good. Like it looks like it's a talking cat, like what you would see on a cartoon or something. Whereas a lot of the filters are kind of, like weird things that kind of, as you move your head, they look fine as long as you're looking straight forward.
Yeah.
But this one,
it's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
How about
it's a dancing cat.
It dances if I dance.
The little things are good too. There, Mitch Harston says it's cool.
Yes, I love them. I think they're fun. Okay, so fun. Okay, well, I'm going to let you go, and we'll be in the chat room listening. So, okay, Douglas?
I got 4 more teams, and I'll go to the thing. Okay. We're on the A's. I talked about that. I talked about Lowry. I think Lowry is a pickup at second base. And then we go to the Why do you like
Lowry, dude? Lowry's not – I don't know, man.
Lowry is one of those guys that every time that he's played, he's hit. His problem is he doesn't play. When 4 years ago, when Lowry last played, he played for the A's, and he batted 4th. And if you look at what he's doing right now, it looks like he never left the team. You know what I mean? That's the thing. It's like I look at that team and I go, there's a reason why they're batting him 4th. He's their most considered hitter. He's batting 300 plus. He's not a 30 home run guy, but he can hit 20 home runs.
Okay.
Actually, he couldn't hit 20 home runs because he couldn't play 85 games. He's going to get knocked out somewhere. But if you're looking for, when you're looking for replacements, and I'm thinking about right now, like he would be a replacement for Kettle Marty at second base or possibly Tatis at middle infield. These aren't year-long replacements. These are 3-week replacements.
So Jed Lowry, dude, you said he is batting 4th right now?
He's batted 4th at least the last couple games.
Holy shoot! I won't curse on your show. Only on my own show.
No, I told Adam. I said generally don't swear, but you can swear if it makes sense. Like don't do silly stuff.
Don't be like AA, dude. Remember AA?
Yeah, we had some people that were, I mean, the thing about it is like this. I don't want, the only reason why I have a thing on my show about not swearing is I don't want to get labeled as adult on iTunes. As long as I can keep that off, I'm fine.
Say you only curse enough to where you don't have to put the label on.
Well, they'll put it on you if they get complaints. And if you say it once, it'll probably get passed over. But baseball, as I said at the beginning, is supposed to be a wholesome sport. I would hope that.
Really?
I would hope that. Well, I mean, there's parts of it that are apple pie, and I don't. Well, it's like I don't know. I don't know your backstory on how you got into baseball, because mine is steeped in the male tradition about my dad coaching my little league team, and
me too. Same thing for me.
And it's like that is a wholesome thing. Your relationship with your father.
Yeah. So.
A 12-year-old should be able to listen to this show and the father not get mad. That's all I'm saying.
I gotcha. So I started playing Little League when I was 9 years old, and the oldest girls on the team were 12 years old. So I was like the littlest. I was the most horrible player. And I just stood at the plate one day, and it was like the end of the game, the very last inning. There was like a runner on second or third. It was up to me. There was 2 outs. It's like if I didn't get a hit, then we weren't going to win the game. And I just stood up there, and I just started crying. Like my dad came out, and he's like, "Just watch the ball hit the bat. Watch the ball hit the bat." And I mean, he was my coach, so you know how that goes. The kid of the coach. So anyway, I kept playing, but only because my dad came out there and told me. Just it's okay, if he wouldn't have been there, I probably never would have played softball ever again. And so that's that.
My dad really wasn't the coach for many of the. A really weird thing happened when I was 11. My brother was 12. One of our coaches on the team that we played for, the Wells Park Rangers, got hit by a car and died. And so they needed to fill in.
Oh, no.
And my father filled in for that year, but it's still a really, it wasn't like he was, the great Santini, takes all this stuff. He's like, well, I'll step up and coach third base. And it was just, and I'll take them out to the Tasty Freeze afterwards for an ice cream. I can do that part of coaching.
But he did good, right? I mean, my dad was the same way. He just and he nominates my mother to be the team mom, right? Which means that she has to do things
we rotated team mom. I mean, like we had a team mom for our little league that I coached, and her job was functionally to write the schedule for someone to be the person that brings stuff. Because it's too much for one person to do. That is too.
But along with that comes the enforcer job, dude.
Yeah, you have to bring chips this week.
Yeah, and if they don't do it, then who gets to bring the chips? Or the kids don't have anything to eat. You know what I mean?
Well, the big thing is that you overstock at the beginning, so you always have a backup.
Costco, dude.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying like like normally one person could bring enough for the whole team because the team's only like 10 guys, right? 10 kids. And
Yeah.
they don't, so, but for the first couple weeks, you assign 2 people to bring stuff. And
Oh,
then
just
some
in
of it,
case, and then you store it. Oh,
you
good
store
idea.
it, but
Good idea, dude.
no,
Okay, Douglas.
I happen to coach at Maitland Little League, which is a great little league, and like one of the better. Like they have everything worked out well. Do it. We always talk about like we have professional baseball players out there, like Forrest Wall and Logan Warmouth and
That's
Craig
pretty cool.
Biggio and Craig Biggio's brother. I mean, New York Mets catcher Thomas Nido. We have a good number of players in the. Was it Matt Moroff, the middle infielder in the Indian Central? We have a good number of players in there because this is a team that competes for the Florida title every year. And so they actually, when I walked into it, they're like, "Here's a handbook, and this is your contact woman, and she'll walk you through it." And in 2 weeks, it was like, "Wow, this." I mean, don't get me, it's hard work and you love it, but it's like it all made sense right away.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, there's something like one of the other coaches in the league is I don't even know his first name. It's Mr. Lee, but but it's like we have an entire black team of players, so we actually have it in a very integrated league when it comes to our travel ball, because Courtney Lee, the basketball player for the Magic, this is his dad, and he coaches Courtney Lee's kid who they play for the Rockies. They look cool in purple. And no, I was like, it's like, yeah, I'm my team was the Cubs, but I had mad respect for the beautiful uniforms. The Rockies were gorgeous. The yellow of the A's are gorgeous. Like that kind of thing. But yeah,
It's like one of those grass is always greener on the other side. This doesn't match anything I have to wear.
yeah, it is true. Now I wear one of those things out. Like, yeah, I guess that is true. You couldn't really wear like that bright yellow A's uniform anywhere else. But
I'm off, dude. Have fun. Finish it up, and I'll
see you later. Yeah, I
room.
only have a couple teams left to go. There are some interesting things.
When you finish, and I have to like do real stuff, like I have to probably go to the grocery store. I definitely know that's on the list. I got to, real life.
I'll give you a name. Evan White's hurt. What do you think of Jose Marmoleos?
To be honest with you, I don't really know enough about him to even give my opinion.
Yeah, it's one of those guys that you don't really know, but he actually is from a long line of Cuban defectors that has a lot of power, and we just don't know who he is. And he's definitely somebody that should be watched. Okay. And if you're in an A-only league, he's probably available. But he hit in Cuba.
That's why he's here, right?
Yeah, okay. His name is Marmoleos.
The thing is, like at this stage of the game, I'm just not spending a ton of my fab money on most of these people, because I feel like there's quite a few players available in most leagues. It's not, the pickings are not that slim right now.
I mean, it depends on which league you're in. Like I'm in a 15-team league that's 30 players deep, and it's like it's like there's like next to garbage on there. And then the truth is, my home league is a 12-team league with 28 roster spots, and that team, there's still great players available. And it's amazing how the different things they go through. Now, I think we should talk about the short leagues more than the long leagues, but occasionally guys cross over. Like I think, like in my league this week, in that league, I drafted 2 catchers. I drafted Tom Murphy and Elias Diaz, and you really shouldn't be giving up on people this early. But if someone gives you a reason to give up for him, like he's hurt and out for the year, or like David Price looks like he's not going to be a starter, you can cut those guys. And Elias Diaz is on the weekend of a platoon, and I can pick up a Tucker Barnhart, and I think Tucker Barnhart is actually valid in both leagues.
For sure, he is.
Short and long. And who's the other guy that was?
I was looking for a catcher because I thought Yan Gomes was hurt, but actually he was only just on the Washington Nationals COVID squad. So
that's a weird thing there, because what's his name? Lucroy actually played pretty well. They haven't activated Gomes yet, but they've activated Avila today.
Yeah, they did. They activated Gomes, but now Alfaro is hurt. So if you have him, but like the difference between 2 catcher leagues and 1 catcher league, like there's either plenty of catchers available or there's like no catchers available. Like there's not a lot in between.
Yeah, in the 1 catcher league I'm in, like Herman Mercedes is available, and it's a 12-team league, and like no one picked them up.
I would spend probably the most money on Tyler Naquin. I would probably spend.
Yeah,
I think Tyler Naquin is actually a decent player. He just never really got a chance to play every day.
And when he played, he had stretches where he was very good.
He has the skill to hit some power. That's what he's doing right now.
My only worry is the only worry about that. Like, I think that their best outfield doesn't have Winker or Senzel in it. Like, that's the crazy thing about it. It's like, and those are the guys they want the most. Like, I think their best outfield is Naquin in center or in Akiyama when he comes back in left.
Okay, but their defense is horrible, and they just accept it the way it is because they decided they were going to go with Castellanos, and that was pretty much the day that they decided they don't care about defense.
Who plays third for them out of curiosity?
And Naquin does not play well at defense either. It's Moustakas.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they have all this stuff. Yeah,
so they have the worst defense in baseball. There's no question, dude.
Well, I was just thinking that they can move Castellanos to third and make their defense even worse, but Moustakas is there.
Moustakas, okay, but Naquin is not great defensively. But here's you know how it works. If you hit well, then you stay in the lineup. They find a place to put you.
And then the truth is, like the Reds went through their first handful of games, getting 6-7 runs a game, and if you can do that, you can actually make a few errors. Yeah,
for sure. You don't really need to catch the ball too much, as long as you're scoring lots of runs. You know,
and that's a conscious choice. Yeah, somebody asked me before a season, like, who are the teams that you avoid your pitchers against, right? And I said, well, I'm going to start the year exactly where I was last year, which is I'm avoiding the Yankees at home and the Rockies at home. But I would add, I would not start a pitcher versus the Reds at home.
The Yankees do not scare me one bit, okay? I say forget the Yankees.
No, I would start an elite pitcher versus them, but I'm talking about starting the middle of the road guys. You know, I'm trying to think of a name like
Gary Sanchez is horrible. Okay, he's already made 3 errors in 1 week, and they're last at the bottom of the lineup. They're hitting better than the top of the lineup. Stanton is already taking rest days. Like a lot of players are taking rest days. I don't even know what the hell that's about, but half of them are hurt. They're like having symptoms from the COVID vaccine.
That's the part that's scariest. So the people.
Why are they forcing the vaccine on these players? They're totally healthy players.
It's not always the vaccine. Some are from the vaccine. Some are from the COVID. You know, like all those guys, like there were 20 people out this week for COVID reasons. Like 1 was for protocol, 2 were for the vaccine, and the other 17 were for COVID itself. You know?
Well, you know, I don't know those. We don't really know, but I do know when it says, you know, they're having symptoms like Gurriel was throwing up and
yeah, no, they believe Gurriel has COVID.
No, he had the vaccine. They said that he has side effects from the vaccine. Either way, they're doing it in shifts. So like they're not doing the whole team at once. They're getting vaccinated a few at a time.
I'm kind of shocked. I guess it's kind of a good thing. I'm kind of shocked that baseball wasn't miraculously all vaccinated back in February. Like I would have thought there would have been a way to do that, which it's probably a good thing for America that they couldn't buy their way to the front of the line. But
I guess, but I don't see the value of the vaccine if you're not going to die from the disease. It's very scary for me. And I know that we probably differ in opinion. I respect your opinion, you know, very much. And so that's the beauty of living in America.
Well, it's the reason is, like, even though in my situation, if I were to get sick, and I believe I have the antibodies, so I probably was sick.
Yes, you were sick. You had COVID. I'm sure of it.
You know, there's only like a 1.5% chance I'm going to die from it because of where I'm at and where I'm at physically. Because I'm overweight and I'm over 50. It's a little bit worse for me. Not crazy bad, right? Just 1.5%. Yeah, and I got through it all right. But the real problem is, and this is what you're worried about too. It's like I'm worried about passing it to somebody. I'm worried about passing it to my mom.
You're still able to transmit the virus if you have the vaccine. You know that, right? You could still transmit the virus.
But because you're going to react better to it, you're going to be infectious for a shorter period of time. It's going to limit the amount. It's like
Lenny's getting the vaccine on the 15th. I'm fine. I mean, you know,
I'm surprised it took him that long.
Well, yeah, we can't get it here. He can't.
Oh, it's just hard to find it.
Believe me, New York is just not the. They're not the example here.
I went because I wanted to get it. I went to a FEMA site and waited in line for 2 hours to get it.
Yeah, so they're now here in New York. You could get it if you're 16 or older. Everybody's able to get it, but Lenny was just having a hard time making an appointment. It was
appointments are hard to get.
Yeah, so he's going to do it, and so I mean, part of me feels like maybe I should get the vaccine so that I don't, But if he's getting the vaccine, right? And so what's the vaccine for if it doesn't keep you from getting too sick, right?
Well, the other big thing is the general population. It's like we need to have, what is it, like 70-80% of the population have immunity to this to be a situation where this will disappear on its own merits. That's what herd immunity is. It doesn't happen.
Right.
It doesn't happen at 40. It doesn't happen at 50. You see moments of it. It helps being at 50 versus being at. But to have it actually get eradicated, it has to be in a situation where it's hard for it to pass on.
So the flu. What are your chances of living if you get the flu? Right. What are your chances of living if you get the flu? They're pretty good.
If you're an older person and you've been taking the vaccine for 10 or 15 years, your odds are nearly perfect for surviving it.
Well, what if you don't have the vaccine? And I realize the older you are, the more dangerous the flu is for you. But why didn't we ever shut everything down and make everybody get a vaccine for flu? Because it seems to me that the death rate is similar to each other. Now that we've gotten it under control, we understand it a little better.
Well, yeah, I guess you could make an argument that 18 months into COVID, it's not too dissimilar from the flu, but 18 months ago it was much worse.
Right, it was totally unknown and very scary.
And the fact it was unknown, but it was worse by a factor of like 8 or 10.
For sure, because we didn't know how to deal with it, right? So with Lenny, it's a mental thing too. People feel afraid to.
I can't tell you. I can't tell you how like
much better you feel.
How much better I feel once I got the shot. Like,
yeah.
I called my brother and I said, because he got his second shot the next day, and I said, "Hey, you want to meet for lunch?" And he's like,
yeah.
"Well, under the thing it says you're supposed to wait 10 days before you change your lifestyle."
Let's
go. Like, all right, no, that's great, but like that idea, like the hopeful thing of the future, I used to run a trivia show at a bar that I could not, even though they wanted me to come back last July, I could not in good conscience be the guy that's attracting 50 people to a bar.
Or just be like sitting there just always wondering if you're going to catch COVID and like get really sick and give it to your mom or just whatever it is.
I mean, I'm more worried about like if I catch it and die, I can live with it.
Your mom had it too.
My mom had it too.
I believe you guys have already had it, but does that even mean that you can't get it again? I think
we don't really know. We don't really know. They said that the test, the testing is fairly new. Based on the antibiotics, the antibodies in your system, they say that will help, but it won't be perfect.
But we've seen so many cases of people actually getting COVID again, like either never getting rid of it in the first place or like getting reinfected. And the vaccine people are getting COVID with the vaccine. They're not going to the hospital. They're not like real extreme, right? So that's really what their promise is now. The promise is if you take this shot, you're a lot more.
Well, the big promise is you take the shot, you're almost guaranteed you're not going to die. You're almost guaranteed you're not going to go to the hospital.
Right.
What you will have now.
Are you almost guaranteed if your chances are 99.97%? You're almost guaranteed that you're not going to die just by getting COVID. Now, think about this, though. You're putting something into your body that we've never used for any kind of disease ever. It's never. mRNA vaccines are brand new.
Yeah, there is.
I don't want to be the guy. I do not want to be the first guy.
Well, get the Johnson & Johnson. That's on mRNA.
The Johnson & Johnson is like that's a live vector virus. They're actually putting the virus into your body, like part of the virus.
I mean that's how most vaccines work.
Right, but the goal is to to make your body react like it is sick, so that it produces the antibodies, right? But the problem with COVID is not really the virus; it's your body's response to COVID, which is like the cytokine storm that you do because your body is like, "Fuck this!" Like, "Oh, excuse me. I hope there's no 12-year-old watching." But you know what I mean? The best thing you could do to keep your body from going into a cytokine storm is vitamin D. I hope you take it every day.
Vitamins have, like, the science of vitamins is that vitamins help you in all the places where you have a shortage of vitamins. So I take a multivitamin every day, which has more than what I'm required to take for the day of everything.
Okay, Douglas.
Except for the only other pill I take is I do take a omega-3 fatty acid pill. That's me knocking.
I want
Omega-3
you to
fatty
start
acid.
taking, I'm going to send you some vitamin D if you don't
The thing
listen
is,
to me.
the extra vitamin D. If you are eating properly and you take a multivitamin, it does nothing for you. What multivitamin does is it fills the gaps. If you're not getting enough B12, it'll fill that gap. So if you're taking a proper multivitamin, it has almost everything in it. Now, the multivitamin that I take doesn't have omega-3 fatty acids, so I take that on top of it.
It sucks taking more things and more things, right? But you can get
I only take the
gummies.
two.
Get gummies. You can
I
have
take the
vitamin
two, but
D.
it covers everything.
75% of Americans are not efficient in vitamin D. It's very
that it's amazing. There is a shortfall in vitamin D, but it's not because we don't eat right. I mean, it is a little bit because adults don't drink milk. But it's not enough sun. It's the SPF 40 stops you from making it. That's the thing. It's like it's the sunscreen is the problem. So you should. I've seen a lot of adults, myself included, where I try to get like when I have cereal in the morning, I have real milk and not soy milk.
Me too, because I love it, and I love it real.
And actually, it's better.
Too. And I will eat cheese all day long and be like, I got my vitamin D today, totally, because I ate so much cheese.
It's like I go through milk now. Families that have children, they go through milk like it's going out of style, but it's like we need to drink more milk. That's really it. But the truth is, mine's a brand that comes from a.
You have dairy farms?
It comes from a group that sells on Home Shopping Network because my mother has a home addiction, so she buys things.
Oh, that's funny. So does my mom. She does.
I mean, like she literally one time was brought on for a VIP thing and was on a show.
Seriously?
Well, Home Shopping is based right down here.
Oh, it is.
Well, it's in.
You could go be part of the audience and stuff.
Well, it's in Tampa, so it's like going to. It would be no different than going to a Rays game. Probably
going to the ghetto. Yeah, close to the ghetto. Tampa's kind of in the ghetto, but you know what? There were so many fans there. Probably more fans than I've ever seen at any Tampa Bay game in my life.
I like Rays Stadium. I'm the weird guy that says that, but in Florida, your stadium has got to be a dome because
it's so humid and hot.
The humidity for most of the days is so horrible.
Yeah,
that it's worse than I'd rather be snowed on. Or whatever.
You say that till you get snowed on, dude, and you go to Chicago for a couple of days. You'll be like, I can't wait to get back to Florida.
Okay. I did that. Oh, my first divorce, I drove back to Chicago because I was thinking about moving there, but we got separated on December 9th, and so I drove up there like December 10th, and like that whole week, it was like 6 degrees.
You're lucky you even made it to Chicago that time of year, dude.
Well, okay. I mean, I told my dad, and then it's like, I'm really thinking I'm moving to Chicago, but I'm going to reassess it in April. Because I'm not going to, I mean, like, it's perfectly fine to be cold, but you're not going to start with this.
No. Okay. All right. I'm leaving. So, okay. I'll be in the chat room. Okay. Bye.
Bye. So that's Andrea. She's when I explain her position, I always say that she's sort of like the station manager. I think that pretty much it up, but she's also Lenny's wife. She's the person that you go to when you need help, and she's there for you most of the time. Sometimes she sleeps. Not knocking her. She'll eventually get to you. And so you can tell we get along pretty good, even though we don't agree on a lot of stuff. There were 3 teams left to go, and I thought there were some interesting things. Like I did, Jose Marmolejo is an interesting play. I'm still live. I'm going to cut that out. I have to get down to this. I have Tom Murphy as my catcher, which I mentioned there. And he's only started 2 games to Luis Torrens. The management said that Murphy's their catcher, but they're not playing that way. Tampa Bay with a Margot injury brought Brett Phillips in, which we mentioned before. Interesting about the Rays is that they're usually a mess of a team where they change things up a lot. But for several straight days, there's the start of their batting order has been Tsutsugo, Meadows, Arozarena, Lau, Yandy Diaz, Joey Wendell, with Margot 7th. And if you consider the fact that Phillips is filled in, but moved from 7th to 8th, they have a fairly stable lineup for the first time in recent memory. Nothing really worth talking about the Rangers, the Blue Jays. Tasker's out with COVID. Grichuk's now an everyday player for a little while. They haven't been going to Tell as a DH. They've been rotating it. In the last 4 days, it was 1 game to Guerrero, 1 game to Grichuk, 1 game to Bichette, 1 game to Semien. So it seems like their preference is is to use it as a breather, but with Tasker and Guriel out, it might be a different thing. So with that, the idea is that we've talked about all these players' things, so I can go over my recommendations relatively quickly, and that's what I will do. Hola, Andrea, she's back. So at catcher, in every league, Omar Narvaez and Wilson Ramos should be owned. 23% owned in Yahoo for Narvaez, 11% for Ramos. In two catcher leagues, you got to think about Alexander Kirk, Pedro Severino, or Zach Collins. And in deeper leagues, Dom Nunez and Tucker Barnhart. In the NFC league, Jose Trevino is owned in 51% of leagues. He's pretty good, but Carantini's at 46. Barnett and Nunez are at 20 and 17. Barnett and Nunez are good pickups. At first base, these are guys I already mentioned. Colin Moran, 22. Wilmer Flores, 6%. Andrew Vaughn at 40. Mark Canha is first base eligible at Yahoo. So is Yuri Guler. He's at 60%. Jared Walsh, if he's not owned, he's at 73%. Nate Lau's at 60%. CJ Cron's at 60%. Those guys should be owned. If they happen to be available in your league, you pick them up. In the deeper leagues, the only guys that are available are Mitch Moreland, Josh Fuentes, Marwin Gonzalez. It's a much tougher thing to go through. At second base, Jonathan Villar is a pickup everywhere. So is Ty France, only at 47%. Colin Moran has second base eligibility at Yahoo. He's also a pickup. A little bit deeper down, you have Kiki Hernandez, Josh Rojas, Chris Owings. In the deep leagues, right, your second baseman pickup is Marwin Gonzalez or Jed Lowry, or you have to be picking a guy that's not playing yet. And I think that's the way you play the Tatis injury, is you pick up somebody for now, for the next 3 weeks. If we're wrong and he doesn't come back, then you make a move on the Nico Horners, Brendan Rodgers, Bobby Witts, C.J. Abrams of the world. At shortstop, number one pickup for me is Jonathan Villar. In the deep leagues, Andrew Simmons and Jose Iglesias in that order. Bryce Turing is another name to note as a deep league shortstop. That trade for Arcia, some people think that it might be that Turing's doing so well at the alternate site, they're thinking of bringing him in early. Didn't have the best spring in the world, but still it's a name to watch. Bryce Turing is one of those guys that fits into that Nico Horner, good bat to ball skills, maybe runs a little, not a big power hitter. At third base, Austin Riley in Yahoo is on a 51% of league. Colin Moran, 22. Ty Franson, 49. Also, Joey Wendell and La Stella are important picks up. As we told you, that start of the lineup with Wendell in there has been pretty consistent, him batting sixth. In the deepest of leagues, Yoshi Tsugo, the leadoff hitter for the Rays. Yandy Diaz, who's playing in that group at 32%. Phillip Evans is owned at 0%. The guy who's filling in for Cabran Hayes is a Cabran Hayes replacement. In the outfield, there's a lot of decent names here. Tim LaCastro, if you need steals, is owned in 2. In the deep leagues, Roman Quinn is owned in 2% of leagues. He's a steals guy only. But Mark Canha is owned in Yahoo 56%. Akil Baddoo 46%. Tyler Naquin 48%. I actually would sort of agree with Andrea that if you're going for right now, Naquin's the first pick. Naquin's actually available in an NFBC 2 under 50% owned. He and Baddoo are just under 50%. Jose Marmoleas, the guy that I brought up, is definitely somebody to watch in those deep leagues because he might be a hitter. Cole Calhoun has just got activated. We talked about Cedric Mullins doing a decent job for the short term. I talked about how of the 3 guys in San Diego, my preference is Profar over Cronenworth. Did I say that? Or was that a message? Anyway, and then Robbie Grossman. Yeah, all right. Guys, Cueto's looked decent. Cueto pitched the 3rd best game of anybody so far this year with that 8 2/3 outing. And I drafted Cueto in the second to last round in that 450 pick league, which means that he was drafted, what do you want to say? What was that, like 15, 13, like 28 picks from the end. So he's drafted I drafted him 423. he ticked up his fast. He had a couple good outings in the spring, but his fastball was back to normal. But he's kind of a goofball. In his first outing, he didn't look that good. The second outing, he looked awesome. And I think that if you're looking for, here's a guy that I brought up. Johnny Cueto was a guy I brought up on one of the Monday night shows as being an innings eater. This is a guy that has pitched for over 200 innings 4 times in his career. Now, admittedly, he's 4 years removed from that, but they're going to let him pitch every pitch that he can. And there is a chance that if he finds a little bit of what he was just before that, the 3-year strings of injuries in last year's thing, that he could be better than Adam Wainwright, that he could be a top 100 pitcher. Now, it's only a small chance. I think Wainwright's a decent shot too, but for every reason that you drafted Wainwright, Cueto should be in that same thing. Plus he gets to pitch in San Francisco, which is a pretty decent spot. And I think that team is actually better than we think. So there's a reasonably decent shot at wins. All right. Wow. I'm going to skip the 2-star pitchers because I've been on for too long, but I'll just go to the ones that I would the ones that I would recommend that are on the deep side are Dean Kramer. He's got a start versus Seattle and Texas. Jacob Junis has a start versus LA and Toronto. Dane Dunning has a start versus Tampa and Baltimore. J.A. Happ has a start versus Boston and the Angels. Danny Duffy has a start versus the Angels in Toronto. And I think Carlos Rodon, if Cease pitched today, Carlos Rodon gets pushed off to next week. And I like him as a 2-star guy. The guys to away from are Madison Bumgarner, Casey Mize, even though I like him overall. He's got a game versus Houston. Matt Boyd, John Gant, Martin Perez, Kyle Gibson, Chad Kuhl. Those guys are startable in points leagues. Oh, wow, the bullpens. Baltimore, Cesar Valdez has asserted himself as the closer in Baltimore, and he'll be that. They're Tampa Bay. Diego Castillo is at by attrition. The other names to look at that are Cody Reed, Ryan Thompson, nothing to really think about. In Cleveland, Karinchak is the only of the 3, Karinchak, Winton, and Clace, who's yet to get a save chance. And Clace is not owned in enough leagues, considering he has a very good chance of being the closer, and he's got the talent to be a runaway closer, just like Karinchak does. Detroit Tigers, you want nothing from them. They had no save opportunity since the 3rd. Soto's been a little more effective than Brian Garcia. Kansas City, Holland has yet to save a game. He has 18 ERA. Jesse Hahn and Wade Davis have 1 save each, which makes me think that Jesse Hahn might get the next chance. Ian Kennedy is back-to-back saves. He's the guy. My favorite thing is the names with all their injuries. That the next guys in line are Josh Spores, which is great because it starts with an S, B, ends with a Z, and then John King from his work in the CNN studios is the other guy there. Will Smith is the guy in Atlanta because Chris Martin went to the DL. The Miami Marlins are an important one I want to talk about because I talked about Anthony Bass, and it turns out he's not very good. But the Rays bullpen is not very good as a whole. I was having this argument actually with Kevin Hastings, and I said that I'm leaning with Dylan Fleur over Yimi Garcia. Yimi Garcia got the first save, but he's always been bad at closing. He got the thing that people don't remember is that in 2015 he got 6 chances to save games. He got 1 save. He blew 5, right? Then in 2016 they gave him 2 chances, blew them both. Didn't give him one in 17 and 18. They gave him 1 chance. He blew that. In 19 he had 3 chances. He blew all those. So that was his 5-year track record until last year. Last year he got 1 chance and he converted. This year he's got 1 chance and he got converted. I don't think he's good enough to hold that position. He's the kind of guy that he misses a lot of bats, but when the bats do hit, they hit him hard. I remember his card from his card in Stratomatic where it had like a 20% chance of someone getting hit, but if that guy was left-handed, it was always a home run. If he was right-handed, half the time it was a home run. Like that's who Yimi Garcia is, not the guy you want as a closer. So I'm thinking that I like Dylan Floro, and actually do think that the guy that is their biggest closer for the year might not be on the team yet, and that would be, I think it'd be a good landing spot for Jeremy Jeffress. To give you an idea how bad their bullpen is, Miami starting team is great. Their bullpen, they're relying on 2 Rule 5 guys relatively heavy. That Zach Pop and that Paul Douglas. It's like it's rare that 1 Rule 5 guy helps you out. If you got 2 Rule 5 guys in your bullpen, that means that scrap heaps was better than what you had in your system, and I don't trust it. It's going to be bad for those guys all year long. Philadelphia, 1 save went to Nearest, 1 save for Alvarado. Your guess is as good as mine. In my rule about, I think Nearest is the guy that the team likes, and I think that Alvarado's got better stuff. Let's find out. Cubs have been good. Kimbrel's been good. They are no longer a questionable status. Cincinnati Reds have given their 2 save opportunities to Amir Garrett, despite his 18 ERA, but he gave up 4 runs in a non-save outing. And Lucas Sims hasn't been good enough to force anything. Pitcher Pirates said that Richard Rodriguez won't be their save, but they've had 1 save opportunity and went to Richard Rodriguez. Kyle Crick is the more talented guy. There's a guy on their team that I was shocked to find out was on their team. He's a guy that I thought was going to be the long-term closer for the Cubs, taking the route from touted prospect in the minors, from starter to the bullpen, the way Carl Edwards did it. But they have Dwayne Underwood. I didn't even know the Cubs traded him away, but he is probably their best pitcher in their bullpen. He's very young, though. St. Louis, Alex Reyes is 3 for 3 with 0 A and 115 whip. Some people would say that he's their closer going forward. He's their closer for the short term, but I think that they're thinking more of him, and he does have that little bit of a problem with walking batters. Jordan Hicks is in their bullpen with a 0 ERA and a .67 whip. Gianna Gallegos is 0 ERA and a .20 whip. You know, they want Reyes to pitch more than what a closer would pitch, I believe. I still think it's Jordan Hicks is going to be the closer at the end of the year. Arizona, it's Ginkel or Crichton, and I'm lining up with Ginkels on the Ginkel side. The Dodgers are the weird one. Kenley Jansen got the first save, and then Corey Neville got the next 2. They're saying it because Jansen pitched the 2 games before, but what the hell is he doing pitching if he's their closer? Jansen has pitched 4 innings this year. He struck out 1 guy. He's got among the lowest strikeout rates. He's walked 4 batters. He's got among the highest walk rates. So he has a 1.45 whip, which, you know, if Kevin Ginkel had a 1.45 whip or Brian Garcia had a 1.5 whip, even Alex Reyes had a 1.5 whip, we think it's something weird. But Jansen's calling card has always been a great whip. He's a .91 career whip, and we do know that his speed is down 2 miles an hour from his peak a couple years ago. I don't think that Jansen is the closer. Now, they're not going to remove him, but somewhere in the next 10 days, he's going to go to the injured list for something. A face-saving injured list move. He's not the player he was. In San Diego, Melanson is 4 for 4, which he goes against my rule on closers. What the rule is, you pitch your best player. The San Diego Padres, their rule is they're going to pitch their absolute worst relief pitcher. So hopefully it works out for them. In Seattle, Montera is still the closer. Middleton got a save, but it was an extra inning save. The guy that I would look at is Kendall Graveman down the road. So in starting pitchers, the guys I'm recommending to pick up, Trevor Rogers in shallow leagues. Trevor Rogers available in 55% of leagues. Steven Matz in 52. Jordan Montgomery in 55. Carlos Rodon in 51. Hwang Young Kim is due to be back shortly. Jake Orizzi is due to be back shortly. They're at 34 and 27. If you make the bid this week, you can spend less for them next week, provided you can hold the spot. Casey Mize is at 19. I like his stuff. I wouldn't be starting this week because it's bad matchups. Jay Happ at 10 is criminally under. I think that he's a much better than a 10 ownership. Johnny Cueto's at 17. Deeper down, Rich Hill, Joe Ross. Danny Duffy looked really good in that first start. There were moments when Duffy looked like he was going to be a great pitcher. and he's owned in like 3% of leagues. A guy that's almost not owned is Huascar Noah of the Braves, who got that one start, did so well. They're giving him a second start just for next week. He's facing Miami, who's yet to really figure out how to hit. So that's a good thing. In the deeper leagues, you got a lot more garbage. The cream of the crop is probably Danny Duffy at 10% owned at NFBC. Alex Cobb is 29%. These are three guys that are just because they're bodies. Taylor Widener has kept his spot in Arizona. He's okay. Wade Miley is okay at 7%, and then Trevor Williams is okay at 7%. There's not any world beaters there. Johnny Cueto's on that list too. And the relief pitchers right now on Yahoo, guys that are getting saves are not owned. Ian Kennedy, 49%. Corey Nabel, 32%. Emilio Clase, 3%, 23%. Yimi Garcia, 26%. Diekman is owned 39%. Trevino is owned 7%. Not sure the closer will be. A lot of people are saying it's going to be Trevino. That's what I picked up. In the deep leagues, NFBC, yeah, Widener, I don't think he's great, but he is pitching, and he's pitching all right. In those deep leagues, the problem with your injury isn't really so much that you're going to get a bad pitcher in his way. You hope to get a serviceable pitcher in his way. But if you have a pitching injury, it puts you behind the pace of innings. And once you fall behind the pace of innings, it's almost impossible to make up. You might be worried you might fall below the absolute minimum, but the real problem is you need the innings to win strikeouts. You need the innings to win wins. So it hurts you straight across the board. Saying Trevino's the guy in Oakland. I've heard that from some people. I don't think it's happened yet. But I was able to pick up Trevino in one league, but I would have preferred to pick up Diekman, who I couldn't pick up. But for what it's worth, he's available in even the deepest of leagues. Kevin Eagles, 20% owned. Kyle Crick, 27% owned. 0% owned in a deep speculation is Jesse Hahn. So that is the gist of what I was talking about. I know I'm going to get better at this. There's a lot of interesting stuff that I said. I know that I said at the first show that I don't really care that I talk fast because I know 21 people who download the show off the thing, and like 8 of them said they listened to it at 1.25 speed or 1.5 speed. So this will be faster anyway. So screw them. I'll talk faster and just put more crap in there. Oh, look at that. I got a new note there. Not a gold bill. So that's it. We went through everything. So, Jack Peterson was given a waffle iron for getting his first hit. It was a home run. I did say I think the nose line should be named after him. Still a thing about slow draft still bugs me. As I said at the beginning, there's no room for hate in baseball, except for you hate a guy that says, it says 4 hours, I'm taking 4 hours. That guy is totally worthy of your hate. It's a maximum, fools, a maximum. And one thing, this is not football, not baseball related, but football related, college football. My UCF Knights had their spring game, and who cares how it ended up? It's just something. It's a ritual in college football. But the interesting thing is they trotted out their new uniforms, and they didn't have their names on the back of the jerseys. They had their Twitter handles, which I thought was kind of cool, and they're going to try to do that for the regular season. Because the problem in football is you don't know the players, but if you could go right to his Twitter handle, the college players are going to get to market themselves soon. I think it's an interesting thing. Twitter handles instead of names on the back of their thing. And with that, I'm going to say good night at 2 hours, but I can edit out a big portion of this before I go online. End the broadcast.